up, Sam Houston State University, and welcome to the question and answer segment with Cohort 1, starring Katlyn, Jeremy, and Kestra.
Emo Cats, we got a special day for you guys today as we have two experts in the field of education. They're both very excited to be here. One hails from the great city of San Antonio, where the San Antonio Spurs are located. Her name is Taylor.
Good morning.
Our next person, we flew all the way from Russia. She is here, very excited and very motivated to speak. Her name is Becky.
Hello.
Welcome.
All right, hi guys, it's great to have you all here. Thank you for having us.
Yes.
So today, a lot of our listeners submitted questions, and we picked the best about the MTAS standards that we would like y'all to share some insight on.
All right.
Our first question is from Sandra in Idaho. Her question is, how can teachers assess the levels of development, such as cognitive, linguistic, social, emotional, and physical?
Well, the best way is to get to know each individual student you have. You know, during your free time, during lunch, their recess, you can bring them in, talk to them, see how they're doing in class, and you can kind of go from there, see what their learning style is. And
Would you agree with that?
Oh, definitely. I could not agree any less with her. That was great.
Awesome. So our next person the next question is from Brock from Tacoma, and he says, how can teachers design instruction to address each student's diverse learning strengths and needs?
Okay, so being a teacher, you have to understand that students come from all different backgrounds, whether that be a different family background, whether that be from the slums of America or the slums of another country, or the well-off middle class or upper class, and that students have all those different backgrounds. So when you're assessing these different levels of learning and how they need to learn, is that you have to address what their backgrounds are, because they're all going to be different. So for example, if you're going to do a winter project, you can't just do a Christmas thing, because some people might not be Christian and they might not believe in Christmas and it might offend them. So you'd have to do holidays type of instruction learning, and you just have to be aware as teachers to catch those different things and address them when planning.
And your instruction needs to be inclusive, whether it's auditory, visual, or kinesthetic. It should be a combination to kind of appeal to each of your students and their different learning styles.
And without singling them out, letting them all be together.
Yeah, that's definitely important.
Okay, so for our third question, we have, how can teachers communicate with learners, families, and colleagues?
Teachers can make it a point to set up meetings with colleagues, and if they're not set up already, like and faculty meetings are always good to go to, so you can kind of bounce ideas back and forth between your colleagues. And with parents, it's always good to keep in touch, whether it's via email or phone call, just to let them know how their child's doing. And
That you're just, like, behind the student and that you're supporting the family.
exactly, yeah.
Yeah, because then there's not that awkward interaction between family member or whoever's in charge of the guardian of the student. There's that open relationship when anyone can step in, and it's not awkward.
When you're going out of your way to keep in touch with them or contact them, then they're not afraid to come to you with questions they have concerning their child.
It's the same thing with colleagues and the students as well.
I also think it's important not to just send home notes or phone calls when bad things are happening.
Definitely.
You want to
Let them know good
also
things, yeah.
call or send notes, emails, whatever, and say, hey, your kid, or you if it's a colleague, you're doing great. Just wanted you to know that.
Right.
Alright, so our next question is from Katie in Wisconsin, and she asks, why is it important for teachers to provide multiple representations in teaching concepts, or providing more than one way of teaching a concept?
Well, again, as being teachers, as we all are, it's very important to learn all the different ways you can teach students, because we are learners and they're learners too. We are learning different ways on how we can get our students more involved. If a student's struggling, we have to learn how we can address them, and then they're learning what we're teaching them. So we're all learning, and we have to be ready to teach them different ways, because say all the class does bad, we have to be ready to look at ourselves, evaluate ourselves, and see if we need to go back and reteach what we taught before that they all struggled on, but with a different way.
Cater to the students' needs.
Yeah, of course, because their needs are well, I hate to say it, but a little more important than our own.
No, definitely.
And
Most
Definitely.
Absolutely.
we need to be aware of that and not just think of ourselves, but think of the children as well.
Definitely.
And
Right.
who would want to hire a teacher that only knows how to teach one specific way? I mean, they need to be well-rounded.
Definitely.
Of course.
So our next question is from Latrice from Huntsville, and it is, why would it be important for learners to have opportunities to apply content knowledge to real-world problems? Excellent question, Latrice.
I agree.
Well, they need to learn to make observations so that they can make connections of their own and end up like teaching themselves.
Definitely, because as educators, again, we have to be ready to send them off to the next stage in life. Like mostly all students start in classrooms, whether that be an engineer, a doctor, a lawyer, or another teacher. They all start with the background of educators teaching them and giving it to them. And if they're not ready for the real world, if we don't send them to the next step, they might fall and it could come back to us.
Excellent. Yes, and it also engages the students more with the real-world knowledge that they can apply to.
I cannot remember the number of times that I have heard, why do I need to learn this? I'm never going to use it.
Definitely.
Yeah.
And it's important for them to know, or they don't want to learn.
Okay, so for our next question, Alexis from North Dakota. Why is it important for teachers to employ a variety of assessments?
Mostly just to see where their students are. When you see where they stand in the classroom, you can see like what do you need to do to help them get to where they need to be.
You don't want teachers wasting a whole day in the classroom teaching them about shapes when they're on geometry. And why would you need to spend another day teaching them shapes when they already know it? You don't want to waste days.
That's true, it's important. And also I know with different types of assessments, not all kids are going to do good on quizzes. Not all kids are going to do good on discussions. Everyone has their own talents, and it's going to show through in the different ways.
If you're teaching them a certain way, they might not test the certain way. So like they have people where they go into a different classroom while they're testing and they get the test read out to them and it keeps them on pace, and sometimes they're not as great with written. So it kind of helps them relieve stress.
That's it.
Okay, our next question is from Daryl in South Dakota. He asks, how can teachers use assessment data to help plan for instruction?
Well, kind of just like how I said, you don't want to spend a whole day teaching them about shapes when they need to learn the formula to calculate slope. I don't know if that correlates in geometry because I'm not a geometry teacher, but you just don't want to waste days. And if the students are, or if some students are already 10 steps ahead of other students, maybe you can put one of those students in other groups and y'all could spend a day of group work where they can all get on the same page with bringing in the students and not just having the teacher separate them and kind of singling them out where it's group work together.
And assessments are really just a way to see, like the teacher can see where her students are at. It's like the foundation that she can build her curriculum off of.
And if you're teaching them something they know, they're going to get bored. And that's when you have behavior issues because they're bored and they're going to act out because they are bored.
Definitely.
Absolutely. So our last question is from Bill Nye, and he lives in New York. And he kind of gives you a little statement before his question so that you know what he's asking. So it's, the teacher understands and uses a variety of instructional strategies to encourage learners to develop deep understanding of content areas and their connections, and to build skills to apply knowledge in meaningful ways. Why is this important as a teacher?
Taylor, you want to take this one?
Yes, I will repeat it. So the teacher understands and uses a variety of instructional strategies to encourage learners to develop deep understanding of content areas and their connections, and to build skills to apply knowledge in meaningful ways. Learning strategies in ways that are more meaningful.
So
why is
maybe
that
they won't
important?
get it the first time, so maybe
Definitely.
try again.
Yeah.
Like they may take a few times because some, like just like flashcards, you have to keep going. So that may help. Then they'll build knowledge by practicing it.
I mean, I think all of this is important as teachers, and we just have to be ready to take the situation head on, and if we mess up, come in the next day, kind of like when we were reading in some books. You got to assess yourself before you blame it on your kids, and you just have to be ready to grow the individuals and grow them as social people too, as in groups, and just have to be ready for anything in a classroom.
That's right.
Okay, well, thank y'all for being here.
Great show.
Thanks for having us. It was really fun.
Yeah, it was great, and we will see our viewers next week.
Stay classy, Sam Houston.